More now on Ken Lewis's decision to step down at Bank of America. We're fortunate enough to bring in Jason Tyler, Senior Vice President at Ariel Investments. He's an investor, folks. He specializes in financials. He joins us from our bureau in Chicago. Jason, good of you to be with us this morning. Do you believe, let me ask you this first, that it was Ken Lewis's decision to step down from Bank of America, as he's been saying, or at least as the bank is telling us?
Absolutely. I do think it was fully his decision to do it. I think obviously he was feeling pressure that people were going to start scrutinizing him even more heavily going forward. So it's not that he was truly leaving on his own terms, but I don't think he was being considered to be fired imminently.
Jason, I'm just curious, how do you think Lewis would be judged by a jury of his peers? I mean, I've heard from some people that have just been talking about these actions this morning that maybe some other Wall Street CEOs think that Lewis has actually done a decent job.
No, Deirdre, I think you could make the argument that he had some bad timing. You know, if you think about when Lehman was failing and he jumps in and picks up Merrill, he was pushed to do that. It was obviously in the heat of the moment. He said, okay. A lot of the CEOs were trying to do the right thing when they were being pushed by Treasury. And so you could make the argument that he had horrible timing. But honestly, you go back even to kind of the fleet in '03 and the countrywide deals, and he just made a lot of acquisitions, and eventually that catches up with you.
Jason, it isn't surprising many that Ken Lewis is leaving. The timing may be somewhat of a surprise, but a bigger surprise may be the fact that the board hasn't named a successor. What do you make of that?
Well, frankly, this is one of the things that we look for in high-quality boards, is to have a good succession plan in place, even if you don't have a situation like this that's so imminent. And obviously, the board hasn't done that, which is a little bit disappointing. Now, frankly, Ken Lewis had been setting up a real contest, and he even refers to that in the announcement, that he thinks that people can now compete for the job. And I think you have to have that competition, but you always, I think, have to have in place a sense of who should take over at any time. So now you've got Brian Moynihan, the Sally Krawchecks that are really going to be duking it out to take over that role, I think, and the board hopefully quickly will come up with a viable candidate. And frankly, I think they do have the bench internally to be able to pick from within their own ranks.
But is this really what Ken Lewis should leave Bank of America doing right now? A battle, if you will, internally to succeed him? Bank of America has a whole lot yet to do. It's got to repay $45 billion to the government. It's still got a lot of risk on its balance sheet, subject to the gyrations of the U.S. economy.
Frankly, Eric, this is the thing I'm most concerned about, is that at the end of the day, it seems like Ken Lewis was passionate about wanting to leave on his own terms, or be able to say that he wasn't forced out. And so I think he did this a little prematurely so that he could say, I'm leaving, and it's my decision to do that. That's been the headline that he gave in the press release. And frankly, the firm still needs to have a sound leadership in place. So it's for an organization of this size, the largest retail bank in the country, you wouldn't want to have this kind of surprise coming, especially near the end of the quarter when the firm obviously needs a voice.
Hey, Jason, this is Bill Cohen here in New York. Aside from Krawcheck and Moynihan, do you see any possible outside candidates? I mean, I think there could be, that may be one of the reasons the board didn't name anybody yet. In addition, is because I think there are 4 or 5 or 6 viable outside candidates that might further complicate matters at that firm down in Charlotte.
You know, it's interesting, you know, as you mentioned that, Bill, because if you talk to a lot of the recruiting firms at very senior levels, they've been doing a lot of searches, and so I think there's a sense that there's some high-power talent that's out there right now that might be, you know, kind of that next layer, the first lieutenants at a J.P. Morgan, or, you know, the first lieutenants at a Goldman Sachs or other places that could come in and truly be kind of a star-powered leader that you could have come in. So I think the board's going to be patient and at least clear the field and make sure that they're not overlooking anybody that you'd think wouldn't be available but might be willing to come in.
Jason, thanks so very much. Jason Tyler from Ariel Investments joining us from Chicago.